Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Tuesday, the 24th of December, 2019. And today we're having a Christmas discussion with Controversially Greg, which is, as always, controversial, and where we attempt to address the issue of what is truth and what isn't. And how can one decide, or even hope to decide, what they are being told is honest or not. Now, before we go there, on Monday, we produced our video entitled Gold Price Forecast 2019 End. And we place a link to this in the description box below. And tomorrow, Christmas Day, we shall publish our silver price forecast, which should admittedly have been published yesterday, but unfortunately we had a hardware computer problem which prevented us from doing so. Now back to today, our discussion with Controversially Greg. And as it will be Christmas Day before you hear from us again, we hope you have a most wonderful Christmas period and break. And thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your support and comments throughout 2019. And we hope that we deserve to have them again in 2020. And thank you for listening to our various podcasts and videos. And please, if you haven't already done so, but you would like to listen to more in the future, please subscribe to our channel, press the bell sign, so that you're notified of our videos and podcasts as and when they are published. So let's go over to our discussion with Greg. Good morning, Greg.
Morning, Richard. Though that is a bit of a misnomer. We've had bands of torrential rain going through. They don't last long, and we've got sunshine between them, so we've got sort of zebra weather. It's black and white.
Well, Greg, it's the day before Christmas, and we thought we'd do a very quick podcast. Of course, to wish all of our subscribers and listeners a Merry Christmas or Happy Holiday. And for us just to very briefly catch the headlines before everything shuts down and we all start feeding our faces, drinking too much wine, sherry, port and champagne, and sit in front of the television for the next 24 hours or so.
And the politicians will use the time very wisely as a good time to bury bad news.
Exactly. So what's on your radar at the moment?
Well, I'm vaguely fascinated by the impeachment and but not too concerned about it one way or the other. Let's face it, the best way to make an enemy of your opponents is to get elected by promising to put all your opponents in prison for doing what you're doing yourself. It does tend to blow back eventually. Net result, the Democrats are pretty damn dedicated to watching Trump like a hawk, and let's face it, he doesn't bear much scrutiny. But then again, nor did the Democrats. So realistically, we fall into the category at the end of this year of having it proved to us yet again, don't vote, it only encourages them.
Well, yes, they're bringing up Hillary Clinton. What was interesting is that the IG report on the Steele dossier, which the Republicans have said started the investigation into Russian collusion, all of the officials said the Steele dossier had nothing to do with it. The IG report is suggesting, well, that's not strictly true. It has had something to do with it. It might not be the overriding aspect, but there is something to do with it. I think the problem for most people, whether you're in the United States or outside, is we just simply don't know who to believe anymore.
Well, it's almost reached a stage where we do know who to believe and who not to believe. Just don't believe a politician.
Mm.
And in fact, we have clear case of don't believe a politician, don't believe the United Nations, don't believe scientists who are employed by politicians or the United Nations. And when I say employed, living on a grant.
Mm-hmm.
And in the main, don't believe scientists on anything, because think of I'm sure most of you are old enough to remember the body of scientists and doctors who said that smoking was safe and had no connection with cancer. Well, it then transpires that they were all being paid by the tobacco industry.
Yes. Yes.
Now we have whole armies of politicians funding quasi-scientists, because let's face it, a scientist will produce the report you want if the fee is right, just the same as we watched in Britain. Osborne commanded the Treasury to produce a report showing all the disadvantages of Brexit.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't ask for a balanced one, and what he got was a report that gave a long list of the disadvantages. And nobody can deny the possibility of those disadvantages. One can, of course, when you look at it in a balanced manner, where you are not holding the funding that pays these economic gurus of the Treasury, one realizes that a balance needs to be struck. They don't need to be working for one side or the other. They need to be working dispassionately, because scientists can very easily go looking for the evidence that proves a point.
Yeah.
That is peering up the backside of an animal to see how its teeth are.
So
you need to actually be looking at the data and drawing a conclusion, not searching the data to prove the case you want to put. That's not science.
So if, for example, I mean, we cannot believe politicians, we cannot believe scientists. Of course, everyone would say you cannot believe bankers as well, or those in the financial services industry, because all they're interested in is amassing huge fees. What does the normal man in the street do, Greg? What does he or she, I say man or woman in the street, what do they do if all of your media is simply lying to you?
Well, we basically do what we always have done through history. Let's take it away from the emotive situation of today and look at the facts pertaining to the Little Ice Age of the 15th, 16th and 17th century.
Mm-hmm.
At one stage, it was absolute conviction on the part of the people that the weather was so appalling, it was so damn cold, the crops had failed because of the evil of selected groups of people. And at the height of this, in Germany alone, they were burning at the stake or hanging 500 people a year as witches because of the effect they'd had on the weather.
Mm.
Now, we're doing much the same. We watch Pelosi holding what is quite rightly a witch hunt regarding Trump, who had got into power by holding a witch hunt against Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
We really haven't changed very much. Yes, in the Bronze Age, we invented a collection of gods as a method of transferring power into the hands of a few. They're still doing it. We still have that few breeding hatred and wars and conflict. Human beings don't change a great deal. Evolution is a very slow process.
You see, we experience the same things, as you know, on this channel. It does not make any difference to us if the price of gold or silver goes up or down, for example. Well, when I say it makes no difference, it does, because obviously if the price goes down, then the holdings we have are worth less, but it gives us the opportunity to buy more. And if the price goes up, then the holdings that we have rises. So it gives us an opportunity to sell if we think that we want to release that gain. But in reality, because our business or our livelihood is not centered around the price of gold and silver, we may as well look at these things objectively and say to people, this is what, based on our analysis and our experience, this is what we believe is going to happen. Now, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but we're giving our genuine opinions. Of course,
if you do factual research and quote fact,
yes,
for instance, and I know you try to avoid climate, but I do it a great deal with climate. I read a great deal on the subject. I have a very strong opinion built on the facts that I have studied. And realistically, we know that if we include the facts pertaining to climate change, we will lose a certain number of subscribers because they don't want to hear fact. They want to continue comfortably in their little woke bubble, having overlooked the fact that the term woke is cultural abuse, because you're not allowed in the woke world, unless you happen to be of the correct ethnic origin, the right to wear a sari or to wear a sombrero if the sun shines, because that's stealing culture from the Mexicans, and so it goes on. Yet they all happily steal Negro American culture by using the word woke. And that seems to be acceptable, because within the bubble they're addressing, they all agree with each other. And heaven forbid that anybody might actually come up with facts that deny what they're talking about.
Well,
we have a situation in this country at the moment where a woman has lost her job. She was a tax expert in a company, and she has made the statement, human beings have two genders, male and female. These are defined by chromosomes. And it should be a right to call yourself male or female, dependent on how you perceive yourself, but that doesn't make you anything other than the gender which you have the suited chromosomes for. And she lost her job, which is outrageous, because this means that you can be fired. And it was taken to a tribunal, and the judge found against her, which is actually firing somebody for freedom of expression based on verifiable fact.
Well, this is the issue because, for example, our channel, we have a number of devout followers, because, to be fair, they appreciate, and hopefully I'm right in this assumption, but they appreciate our integrity. Having said that, we would have 10 times the number of subscribers if every week we started saying gold and silver prices are going through the roof, buy it now because the dollar's going to collapse tomorrow and it's the end of the world. And this is
just now you were explaining why the price of gold and silver doesn't materially affect us, apart from our in any sort of serious terms paltry holdings. But you missed out the main point, in my opinion. But nobody's going to believe us because it doesn't suit the woke bubble thinking of many of them. Nobody pays us to say one thing or another.
No.
I have people endlessly telling me that I am being funded by the Rockefellers.
Yes.
I am being funded by big oil, whatever that is. You know, I buy oil by the litre or the pint.
Do you know Joe Biden's son?
Precisely. And it's just a complete mockery. As soon as they run out of a civilized discussion of points of view that oppose, they resort to fantasy and insult. I'm a denier, all sorts of things, because I just don't buy into the crapology of anthropogenic global warming.
So if people, and this isn't just about climate, and you are, I've got to admit, you are fixated on climate these days, but that said, that's taken over from your Brexit infatuation.
Well, we won that one.
Yes, that's what I mean. So, so
I am Richard, as you know, over the last 20 years, I am a causal animal.
Indeed. So
I have many causes, but usually there's something at the top of the pile.
Yeah. But if everyone goes or enters these silos, which clearly the internet in particular and the demise of the general media, that will cause or will enable us to choose the media we actually want to watch or listen to. This is the problem. Years ago, you had certain national newspapers and a limited number of news channels. So you were restricted as to what you could listen to. Now, admittedly, a number of them were biased. We're not going to deny that. But in the main, you would listen to things you both agreed with and disagreed with. But today, you can restrict your media right down to just listening to those aspects that you want to listen to or you want to believe or runs in conjunction with what you believe. And
we're back to the funded scientist, aren't we?
Yeah.
Looking for provenance to produce the report that somebody wants.
Yes.
We're looking at Chakrabarti, who was commissioned by the Labour Party to produce a report on anti-Semitism within the Labour Party. And because she produced a report to suit the Labour Party that said that anti-Semitism was no problem in the Labour Party, and that anti-Semitism was tiny in the Labour Party, she got a peerage out of it.
Yes.
On top of her fee as a barrister. You know, it just makes a farce of these reports when realistically, and here is a piece of out-of-the-box thinking for you on the demise of the Labour Party in Britain, and the apparent, and I say apparent, and it'll be understandable why I'm saying it in a moment, apparent anti-Semitism of the Labour Party. I do not believe that the Labour Party is anti-Semitic endemically. That will become explained in a moment. The Labour Party has watched its ground roots, its base, erode as the benefit structure and work. We have a very good figure for employment at the moment, very low unemployment. We have a very generous, relative to most countries, benefit structure for those who don't work. We even pay people who don't want to work. And when you think that, let us take Sweden, in Sweden, all these immigrants that have been flooding into Sweden, more than welcome, they now find that only 1 in 10 of them, after 2 years, bother working. Because, in fact, they're getting more on the benefit structure than they ever earned in their countries of origin.
Right.
And the system in Sweden is in dire, dire problems.
Right.
Which is why we have Greta Thunberg being heavily funded, because it's distraction therapy from what is really happening in Sweden.
Right.
Now, going back to the Labour Party, their base grassroots have been, to a large extent, gentrified, in that Mr. Biro in the 1920s invented the ballpoint pen. And people who would have been swinging a pick and shovel are now, don't see themselves as Labour. They see themselves as middle class because they're white collar workers. The Labour Party had got very tied to the word Labour, a very good piece of Aesopian language, to choose the word Labour as the party name. But it was beginning not to work. So they needed a new base. And one of the fastest growing bases in this country is Islam. And unlike the Jewish peoples who came into Britain mostly in poverty and lived in areas like Stepney and the East End of London, when they started to make money, they moved out into areas like Golders Green and Finchley, St John's Wood, West Hampstead, Cricklewood, Hendon. They integrated with the indigenous population. The Muslims have something of a record of moving into a house with a high density of population in that house, paying for that house until it's owned, and then splitting the household in half and buying the house on either side, and continue to pay into the pot until they own the street. They then start buying into the next street, and all of a sudden you find that you have a huge Muslim community in a given area that hasn't integrated. Many of the people in that area don't work. The women of the area tend to stay at home because this is the ethos of Islam. And many of those, particularly women, don't even speak English. They have no need of it. Now, as that community spreads, and we have them in places like Leicester, Bradford, Leeds, Birmingham, great blocks that then set up as businesses, taxi companies, because they've got a pool of cars, they've got a pool of drivers, they've got a ready-made customer base of locals, their own community, and they service beyond it. Now, all of a sudden, you start to find that complete areas of towns and cities start to be so heavily ethnically different that they start to introduce their own legal systems. And there's very little you can do about it. And it is only a matter of time, unless we can break this ethos and get these people to integrate, before they will take total control of one of our towns or cities, and it will spread from there. And there really is nothing we can do about it in simple terms. Now, I don't have a problem with Islam as a religion. It's as batty as all the other religions. It depends on Bronze Age gods invented by man as a method of control. Yeah, I understand that totally. They've had over 2,000 years now to come up with one iota of proof, and they haven't found one single shred of proof. And it's called faith. But they can't even explain what faith is. It's just blindly believing what they're told. I'm sorry, I don't do that. So we have a very changing world.
Interestingly, though, and a number of our subscribers are Christians. Some are born-again Christians. Others are from other faiths too. And I think, whereas you have your position on faith, I have a slightly different position. But then that's the beauty of Illuminati Silver, in that there is a group of 4 of us, all with varying experiences and knowledge and backgrounds, and we don't all necessarily have to agree. And yet we can still get on with each other, and there are certain aspects we disagree fundamentally on, and yet we can still get along. What I find quite surprising, and to some extent disheartening, is that we are seeing, certainly in America and in the United Kingdom, and I am sure it is spreading across the globe, this siloization, whereby if you disagree with me on some fundamental ethos of life, whether it be politics, whether it be climate change, whether it be religion, you are now my enemy. And
yeah, it's hilarious, isn't it?
It is. And I must, not only must I not bother with you, but I must do all that I can to destroy you. And this is a very, very concerning aspect. It is almost, I mean, if we think back to the Crusades, it's almost that in just being reincarnated to a degree. Or when you had various sorts of monarchs who just wanted to undertake a land grab, or as recent as Hitler's Germany, you know, to have dominance over the world, and only their beliefs are the true ones, and only those must pertain. So How do we get out of this? Because
No,
otherwise,
wrong question.
go
How
on.
do we get out of it? I quoted early on in this podcast the fact that in 15th, 16th, and 17th century, the Little Ice Age, life was so appalling that people were looking to see amongst themselves who was responsible for upsetting their assorted mythical gods to cause such suffering, and they were incinerating live people on bonfires because of the problem. Because they thought this would appease or in some way stop an ice age. It's as batty as thinking carbon trading will stop the sun shining.
I knew you'd get that climate change in then. Very well put.
Well,
I'm
sure lots of people disagree with me. I don't have a problem with that. Let's discuss it.
Absolutely. No,
Let's have a vigorous, intelligent, well-mannered discussion.
Yes.
As long as everybody realizes I'm right.
Well, on that note, Greg, I'm going to go back to my mince pies and glass of sherry. So is there anything you would like to sort of conclude this in saying to our subscribers?
What I'd really like to say to everyone, whether they believe in Christmas, whether they believe in fairies at the bottom of the garden, whether they believe in Santa Claus, St. Nicholas, or Father Christmas, thoroughly enjoy the holiday season. Make the most of family and friends. And then I wish you all an absolutely superlative vintage for 2020 in health and happiness.
Well, thank you, Greg. I will ditto that. And who knows, perhaps 2020 will see both gold and silver go to the moon. Thank you very much. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative. And if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer. Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.